You want to hear a story about small-town tyranny and sweet, slow justice? Good, because this one's got a vineyard, a power-hungry HOA queen, flashing lights, and a twist that made half the room forget how to breathe. Sit back, or better yet, imagine you're on my porch with a glass of something red, because I'm about to tell you the whole ridiculous ride. When my wife and I first drove up that winding dirt road, the world felt like it finally decided to be kind to me. Rolling hills that went on, soil that smelled like possibility, and a house that looked like it had been waiting for somebody to finally love the land. My life dream had always been simple: turn a patch of stubborn dirt into a vineyard. Plant something that would outlast me, Hope planted in rows, we tucked ourselves into a nearby community that marketed itself as harmonious living, which, spoiler alert, is often shorthand for there's a petty little kingdom here with a crown made of approval forms and a clipboard. The crown was worn by a woman I'll call Karen. From day one, Karen treated me like an unsolved mystery, too young, too loud, too alive for her taste. She'd sniff around every little thing, come up with violations like she was collecting figurines, trash bin out 1 minute early violation, a single rogue dandelion near the mailbox violation. She didn't argue, she adjudicated. I tried to be neighborly, small talk a casserole once, but to her I was a project. Every conversation felt like I was on a tiny stage and she held the gavel. Meanwhile, my real life existed a few miles away on a separate parcel of land, my vineyard in progress. Before sunrise, after my 9 to 5, I'd be out there with a coffee gone cold and my hands in the mud planting the first stubborn lines of vines. It was back-breaking, honest work, and I loved it. The vines started as little green spears, and then over 2 years got gutsier, leaves unfurled like flags, tendrils found their grip, and tiny berries showed themselves like secret promises. My wife and I were saving, sweating, and dreaming, and the dream, bit by careful bit, became real. So when the first cluster of grapes appeared, we invited a handful of friends and a few neighbors who hadn't drunk the HOA Kool-Aid, an easy, small celebration at golden hour. There was cheese. There was laughter that bubbled up like those first shy bubbles in a fermenting barrel, and there was that warm hush you only get when the sun decides to retire and the whole valley leans in to listen. Then we saw the lights. Not fairy lights, not lanterns, real police lights, blue and red, cutting through the dusk like someone had painted a bad finale across my driveway. 2 patrol cars rolled up slow, no sirens, but all the drama lights reflecting off the vineyard stakes. My heart did that ridiculous drum roll thing. An officer stepped out, polite but confused, asked me what was going on. Apparently someone called in a large unauthorized commercial operation and a disruptive party. I looked at our 10 people, friends, neighbors, my mother-in-law making terrible jokes, and I knew exactly who'd answered her phone with a smile and a lie. Karen. I told the officer it was my property, my private gathering, my small fledgling vineyard. He said they had to follow protocol and asked for proof of ownership. While I hunted for the deed, I could see Karen and a couple of her cronies hunched at the edge of her manicured yard, the posture of people who believe the rules are their coat of armor. She looked smug, like she was already imagining the headline, "Young Man Brought Low by HOA." I handed over the folder deeds, titles, chain of custody for the land, things you'd expect to be boring until they are suddenly not. The officer flipped through the pages. He looked up, then down at the paper again, and his face did this tiny human thing like someone realizing they're watching a trick where the rabbit is actually an entire rabbit farm. "Sir," he said slowly, gesturing across the valley with one hand, "does this deed cover all of this?" His arm made a sweep that included my vines, the little creek, and absurdly the padded chunks of land where the HOA houses sat like toys someone forgot to pack away. I felt something in me click into place, not a villainous click, more like the satisfying clack of a key dropping into the right lock. Because here's the part Karen never bothered to find out when I bought the land for my vineyard. I didn't just buy a cute little parcel. I bought the whole parcel that came out of a family trust, sell off several hundred acres that, unbeknownst to the HOA residents, included the ground their community was built on. The developer had a lease, not ownership, and that lease was set to expire in 6 months. The new landlord, me. The officer, bless him, kept it professional, but you could see the amusement there, like someone watching an inevitable slow-motion gag. He walked over to where Karen was standing, the kind of walk that makes you wonder if you're about to be politely informed of your error or politely escorted out of a production you never auditioned for. He showed her the papers. For the first time in months, the lightness left her face and left a raw, embarrassed color in its place. The man tipped his hat, handed the documents back, and said, "Looks like you own the whole valley. Have a good evening, sir." The cops left. Karen left. Her cronies scampered. If you think that's where the story peaks, hang on, you haven't seen my favorite part. The next HOA meeting was equal parts awkward and delicious. News travels fast when there's gossip and faster when there's a legal document that says someone you've been bossed around by doesn't actually have the authority they thought they had. I walked in and felt every eye like a beam. People who used to whisper behind hedges were now turning their heads like sunflowers tracking the sun. Karen was pale, like she'd been asked to recite every mean thing she'd done and had failed. Men and women who used to avoid eye contact with me now wanted to shake my hand. It was odd, humbling, and a little hilarious. I let the silence swell for a beat, let them feel the weight of their surprise. Then I stood and I told them something simple. I didn't buy the land to play landlord with pitchforks or to start a petty war. My issue had never been with the people, my neighbors. It was with how the HOA had been wielded as a weapon. I announced I was dissolving the current board and their Byzantine rulebook, then proposed a new committee focused on the things that actually matter. Roads that don't crumble, a proper mailbox system, and honest maintenance not measuring the height of someone's ornamental grass. I cut the community fees significantly. The money that used to pay legal battles and stipends to a tiny ruling class would now go into a community improvement fund. My first project, a small park and a playground where kids could be kids without a permit, signed in triplicate. I didn't want to humiliate anyone, I wanted to restore dignity. That said, Karen put her house on the market less than a month later and moved out. Rumor has it she's somewhere else now, probably eyeing another neighborhood she can elevate into her little empire. Good luck to her. I mean that with all the civility I can muster. We started talking to one another. People fixed fences together on a Saturday, traded tomatoes and tools, and sat by the park bench with cups of coffee and real conversation instead of passive-aggressive notices. My vineyard did what vineyards do. It grew. We started hosting a small harvest festival each year, a slow, joyful thing, where the same people who once sent letters and violation notices now helped press grapes and plate cheese. There's a kind of glorious irony in sharing your harvest with the very people who once tried to stop you from planting it. Tastes like redemption and damn good sangria. If there's a moral here, it's not some neat printed line you can hang above the mantle. It's the kind of thing you stumble into and feel nakedly real. Power, when concentrated in small hands and used to bully, only looks big until someone shows up with the paperwork and a sense of purpose. But more than that, the thing that changed everything wasn't my ownership. It was the choice to use that ownership to heal the community rather than crush the people who'd been hurt by a culture of petty control. Winning felt sweeter because we chose kindness as the baseline, because justice for once wasn't used as a spectacle, but as a tool to rebuild. So what do you do with a victory like that? Celebrate, of course, a lot, but also learn. I learned that shouting back usually makes things louder, but not better. I learned to keep planting even when people tried to pull up the stakes. And I learned that sometimes the best revenge is to make something beautiful out of the very thing someone tried to weaponize. And yes, the ending felt satisfying. Karen moved. The HOA rules were trimmed down. The kids have swings that don't come with a permit clause, and my vineyard keeps producing a stubborn, honest wine that tastes like a place that refused to be bullied. There's a humble kind of justice in that. So here's the part where I hand the mic to you. Do you think I did the right thing using ownership as leverage to change the system? Or was that an abuse of power, just in the opposite direction? Where's the line between taking a stand and becoming the person you once hated? Tell me your wild HOA stories, your petty neighborhood wars, or that time you watched someone get their comeuppance. Drop it in the comments because I want to read them all. If you like this story, share it with someone who fancies a little victory and a little wine. And if you've survived your own HOA saga, tell me, how did it end for you?
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video. Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.